Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Hello everyone, welcome to Outlaws at Junction. I'm going to do the spoilers for today and yesterday. First off, we have Esoteric Duplicator. Whenever you sack it or another artifact, you get to pay 2 colorless. If you do, at the end of the end step, create a token that's a copy of that artifact. I think where you could probably break this a little bit is you go for some extreme value plays. Like if you pair it up with Firewalker or Marionette Master, and you have a bunch of treasures in play, you could sack the treasures and then pay half the cost to the death trigger of this, and then you get to replace that treasure on end step and do a bunch of damage to people.
And again.
I think that's where this card would shine, is just merely replacing artifacts that you're sacking. And if you have, say, anything that doubles your mana production, then effectively the treasures will pay for themselves. Pest Control. Destroy all non-land permanents with mana value 1 or less and has cycling at 2. I like this card a lot. It's very powerful in very competitive decks. You can sweep up all the cheap mana efficient rocks, and then if you don't have anything else to hit with it, it replaces itself. So I like cards that are conditional but have that flexibility of being able to pitch it to draw a card. It's going to do something for you at all times. Omen Path Journey. Enters the battlefield, search up to 5 land cards with different names. You shuffle, and then at the beginning of your end step, you get to choose a random card exiled with it and put it on the battlefield tap. Because it happens on end step, you could go for just value and like get mana fixing lands. But if you're going for like lands you depend on to win the game, like Field of the Dead or Valakut, I might not do those kinds of things because you could end up waiting 5 turns to pull either of those. So I would only use this to like find mana fixing lands, things that your deck doesn't depend on but is a nice quality of life kind of thing. I think it's not as good as people will think it is. I think it's really slow, but if you use it the way I suggest it, it'll be perfectly fine. And I think it should be fairly priced, even though it's a mythic and gonna get the little special promo from the extra sheets. I don't think it's gonna see too much play. Memory Vessel. Exile it. Each player exiles the top 7 cards of their library until your next turn. Players, when they play cards, they exile this way. And they can't play cards from their hand, so it's a very unique wheel effect in that you could do this to be kind of a jerk. If you know someone has tutored for something and they put in their hand, you could exile the cards from their library and force them to play only from that pile of cards.
Just wait longer.
Since you could activate it at any kind of speed, and this might buy you enough time to stall out that game-winning tutor. Or if you want to use it for just value, that's just fine too. Worldwalker Helm. If you would create 1 or more artifact tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional map token. For 2 mana and tapping it, create a token that's a copy of a target artifact you control. The top ability is nice. If you care about making a lot of tokens so you don't care about the type of token that you make, this is great. Get to increase your artifact count real fast. The bottom abilities, if you're copying a significant token, I'd use that ability. Like if you're copying the constructs that scale up based on how many artifacts in play, then that could be scary. And then when that happens, it combos with its top paragraph. So you could copy a construct comes in with a map token, and then you've increased all your constructs by at least 2 power and toughness. Rest in peace, getting a reprint. This is a staple for dealing with graveyard decks. Grand Abolishers getting a reprint. This card always finds its price point in the 20s again, so if you haven't picked up a copy, get one when it drops like maybe below 15, and then eventually with time passing it'll always go back up. It just seems like a staple white card. Lotus Ring. For 3 mana it's indestructible, and then equipped creature gets +3/+3 in vigilance, and then you can sack the creature to add 3 mana of any one color. Quick cost of 3. This is a unique sack outlet. Like I'd play this on Aristocrats. Go to combat, get your 3/3 vigilance attack off, and then just go down the line of creatures. You sack the creature, float 3 mana, re-equip this to another thing, and you just rapid fire. It's a free sack outlet essentially, with some extra stuff in that most sack outlets can't protect themselves, but this one does. So I think that would be the best way to use this. Loot the key to everything. Has ward 1. So if your upkeep, exile the top X cards of your library, or X number hard types among non-land permanents you control. You may play those cards this turn. Kind of reminds me a lot of Prismatic Bridge. Prismatic Bridge lets you get a creature or planeswalker and play for free. This doesn't let you play for free, but you get to dig really far into the deck to play these things. It cares about permanent types other than lands. It's battles, that's artifacts, that's enchantments, that's creatures, and planeswalkers. I think I got them 5, maybe 6, if I remember right. You get 5 to 6 free cards max off of this thing, and then you effectively extend your hand into your library X amount of cards, and that's why this is pretty darn good. Dust Animist. If you control 5 more untapped lands, it enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters and a lifelink counter. It also has flying. This thing can be really annoying to deal with. It's a card that's a fine body in the early game. I mean, 2/3 for 2 mana with evasion is pretty good, even in standard. As the game goes on, it gets to become a real scary threat. I like this card for 60 card formats. Good closer, and just because it has 3 toughness, you could stuff out a lot of aggro too. Legion Intruder. Enters battlefield, deal 2 damage to any target, and then for 2 mana, sack another artifact, create a 3/3 golem. It's not bad. Does something on entrance, and it does something more even after it comes into play. The fact that it takes up in Mythic kind of feels kind of weird.
Is it really that rare?
That's the only gripe I have about it, is it's a pretty medium effect for the rarity. Simulacrum Synthesizer. On ETB, scry 2. Whenever another artifact with mana value 3 or greater enters, create a construct that scales. I feel like a lot of people can abuse the 3 or greater ETB clause because artifacts have a lot of cost reduction, and they normally like to do that for strategies like eggs. I'd pair it up with things that give artifacts affinity, like the Golem or the Tezzeret from the War of the Spark Topper. It's a good card to pair up in those kinds of decks. Gem Lightfoot, Sky Explorer. Flying Vigilance. On end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, draw a card. This encourages flash play or instant speed, just draw go kind of strategies. If you only have intentions on playing cards on everyone else's turns, this is a fine card advantage piece. Got good stats, got some good keywords, lets you play aggressively and defensively. Play it as commander too. Wily Duke, Anton Hero, 4/2 for 3, vigilance. When it comes tapped, you gain 1 life, draw a card. This seems like a very interesting deck construction kind of card because it has vigilance. You can't make it tap the traditional way of attacking, so you have to tap it down via another means. This could be an interesting Tim deck that's outside of the normal colors of Tim. Tim normally requires like blue in it or red, and this is not in either of them. There are plenty of artifacts that tap down creatures, so it is possible, but you could do a life gain strategy and get payoffs for gaining life. You are in the right colors for that, at least, and you could take advantage of that somehow. If you're playing a bunch of effects that scale off with counters, like a Johnny's Pridemate kind of stuff, this would be kind of fun and cool. And he joins up for 4 mana, Naya. On ETB, deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a triggered ability of a legendary creature you control triggers, it triggers an additional time. Wow. Doing something more than once is always good in Commander. I would only play this as if you're playing a commander that has a triggered ability of some kind and that you could repeatedly get it, like a combat trigger, or if you're playing a flicker deck. I would only use this in those kinds of decks. Goldvein Hydra. Vigilance, trample, and haste. Enters with X counters on it. When it dies, create a number of tap treasure tokens equal its power. That's nice. If you're playing a +1/+1 theme deck and you put counters on stuff passively or have other means of putting counters on stuff, this might be a nice inclusion. You like to see a threat that also gives you an investment back for when it dies. And people don't want to necessarily kill it, but they have to if they don't want an XX vigilance, trample, haste kind of thing beating them to death. A cool, the unrepentant.
Repent!
Flying and trample for 4 mana, or it's a 4 mana creature. It's a 5/5. Sack 3 other creatures. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Accidentally once each turn. I like that you could cheese stuff in at instant speed. I don't think there's a Rakdos commander that does this at instant speed. The cost is expensive, but if you're playing aristocrats, you probably don't really care so much. Interesting and cool commander, I'll say that. He looks awesome as well. That brings us to the end of today's spoilers. If you stuck around this long, subscribe. I do plenty of other things other than talk about spoilers and the applications of the cards that you see. I've been doing this since the very beginning, and I'm pretty quick at talking about things. I think I do this kind of stuff the fastest on YouTube. If time is a factor and you just want the facts, then you're in the right place. I just want to appreciate and thank you for your time for watching, and thank my subscribers. Everyone take care. Bye.